brand you think you should build. And then there's the one that your body is quietly asking for. In today's episode, I'm joined by Isabel Bagsik, soulful brand designer, creative wellness guide, and founder of Unconventional Bliss. She's really a woman after my own heart, whose work sits at the intersection between visual identity, intuitive healing, and nervous system-led branding. Let those last few words just sink in for a second there. Branding is something I come back to a lot on this podcast, and something that's really a part of my work as well. And that is because in my experience, when we create a true brand around what we're putting out into the world, no matter your creative path, whether you're an artist, musician, designer, business owner, you're trying to create more of a fan base. When you have a brand, and by brand, a brand is not what you tell people you are, it's what they remember you as. So when you kind of are really intentional about planting those seeds of why you're going to be remembered within people, it gives you a lot more conviction behind what you're trying to put out into the world. It also gives you this really exciting kind of package in the way that you share, and I find that it gives creatives so much more backbone behind what they're putting out. But we have to do it in this really soulful way, which Isabel is just like so the queen of. So today we explore what it really looks like to build a brand from the inside out rather than the outside in. We talk about the importance of slowing down before the strategy, how to reconnect with your creative voice after burnout, and why your brand should feel exciting to you before it ever speaks to anybody else. Isabel also shares her story behind her own turning point, leaving behind a conventional path in design, healing from a panic attack at college, and eventually crafting a business that blends her inner child work, ancestral connection, and intuitive rituals. Because the truth is, when you stop trying to create the brand you think you should have and instead build the one that feels like home to you, it becomes infinitely more magnetic to the people that it's meant for. And it spreads your voice, your art, and your vision so much wider, creating this like ripple effect within the communities around us. And that's, I think, really the strength behind our creative voice when it's kind of packaged in this way, which is really exciting. So let's dive in, shall we? Isabel, a massive warm welcome to Maverick Mind. Hey, Isabel, massive warm welcome to Maverick Mind, the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here, and a massive welcome to you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there's so much that I think I want to dive into, because I think what you do will help the listeners so much in so many different ways, but to kind of give them an idea of how you come to help people in the way that you help people, maybe paint a little bit of a picture of what was your childhood like with you. Were you always creative? Were you always kind of drawn to creativity, or was it something that you found a bit later?
Yeah, so yes, ever since I could remember, I was always this creative spirit doing all these different arts and crafts, getting my hands on these different projects, and I've accumulated quite a bit of art supplies over the years that my mom is like, okay, let's clean this up. And I'm like, I have to hold on to them because I never know if I'm gonna want that thing from 10 years ago to make this new project. But yes, arts and crafts for so long and figured out what I wanted to do. Fortunately, when I was figuring out what college I wanted to go into, but it was definitely not easy having immigrant parents and a
Mm.
father in software engineering. So that was definitely a journey. But in short, yes, I'm fortunate that my creative spirit since childhood is still being nurtured today.
Yeah, for sure. And that were you kind of always drawn to one channel of creativity, or were you kind of interested in loads of different things?
I would say pretty much. inspired and interested in everything. I really couldn't nail down one thing. I'd hop from one project to another and go to the craft store for the next thing to make. And it spanned from jewelry making to painting to drawing and sewing and making these clay figurines. So it continues to evolve and change as I find a new thing to learn about.
Yeah, naturally curious little beings, aren't we?
Mhm.
They always have something that we're down a rabbit hole about or really obsessed with for a moment, and then we move on to something else. It's funny how these patterns kind of show
Yeah.
up in a lot of us. So at that kind of um, pivotal point of choosing what to study when you went to college, and of course, I think so many people will resonate with that pressure to kind of go down the quote unquote normal route, safe route, or do the real job route. Which route did you take in the end?
Yeah. So when it came down to it, it was a bit of a compromise with my dad. So I really fought for, and it was really an emotional decision, crying like I can't do anything else, to go to the school with a design program. And the compromise that we landed on was having a minor in computer science. So my main course would be in design, but I would take a few classes to have a somewhat like a smaller degree in computer science. And that worked for 2 quarters or 2/3 of my first year. And that's when I experienced, I believe, my first panic attack.
Oh wow.
During a live, it was like a midterm review session, and I started feeling like this heaviness or this like something scary in physically in my chest and in my body that I haven't felt before. And I probably was depressed and all these other things, not understanding mental health at that time. And it was, yeah, a really difficult moment to have to be honest with myself and then pluck up the courage to admit and tell my parent, especially my dad, that I can't do this anymore, that this is affecting me. I can't like this isn't made for me, or I'm not like meant to follow down that path. And the night before that they would come visit me, I had all these scenarios running through my mind and they were all bad and I could not sleep. And the next day that they came, I was crying when I finally told them before they left. And my dad, surprisingly and gratefully, was probably shocked because, as the oldest daughter of immigrants, of Filipino immigrants, no emotion. You have to be strong and you like all these things. So for me to cry in front of them was probably very shocking and disturbing, to
Mm.
say the least. And from that, he said, I just want you to be happy as long as you work hard at whatever you do. And that was what stuck with me the rest of my time in college, to not take for granted what education I was able to have to learn design and drop the computer science and solely focus on the design program. So that was the experience in college and what really guided me as a foundation for where I am today as a brand designer in my own business.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a powerful story because I think that it's so common, isn't it, that sometimes we can try really hard to fit ourselves into that box, but there's often some point where the body will tell you no. Like
Mhm.
that this is not meant for you, or trying to kind of keep squeezing yourself in there. Yeah, the body kind of chooses something else for you
Yes.
sometimes.
Yes, the body has a lot of wisdom, and it has taken years to really listen and learn and work with my body. Because sometimes, like you said, the body knows sometimes before you do in the
Mm.
mind.
Yeah, definitely. I've had experiences like that myself, and sometimes it can be quite confusing. 'Cause you're like, what is wrong with me? Why is my body like this? Or why am I all of a sudden getting all this anxiety out of nowhere? Is it because of this? You're trying to kind of rationalize it with yourself, but sometimes it's just like, no, it's just your body's trying to tell you something and pull you somewhere else. But it's really amazing that you then kind of followed the thing that you are passionate about, and Yeah, and you're still doing it. That's awesome. So, what was it kind of about? Do you remember what it was about branding that really kind of drew you towards that channel?
Yeah, so I think I've discovered this over the years of what I ended up gravitating towards. So my design program was various angles in design, and then it was my professional career experience of guiding me towards, okay, these are the kinds of designs that maybe I'm not as interested in, and these are the ones that do excite me. And so some of those areas of design projects and jobs were things like branding for and creating social content for these celebrities and influencers and high profile businesses and creating my own passion projects, a magazine, and now in my own business. And what branding is really exciting for me is this overall ability to be able to tell a story through visuals and instill emotion or some kind of reaction within a person. And I think that's really exciting to be able to invite your audience into your world, into your universe that you're crafting. And whether it's for your overall business, that's the branding that you're focusing on, or branding for a particular campaign or event, um, or project, all excites me in this ability to craft a particular story and not just have it a one-way type of interaction, but the chance to invite folks into and participate in that story too, and feel like they are a part of something. And so that is something that I'm always exploring and experimenting with in how branding can do that.
I love that reframe because I think a lot of creatives, we really struggle with putting our work out there because we maybe have some kind of resistance to the word marketing. Or because we're taught that when we're trying to put our work out there, we're a sellout, or because, it will mean something about us, we'll be judged by other people, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
And it's always, yeah, kind of a projecting outwards. But just that reframe of like, actually, how can it be a welcoming in?
Mhm.
Just feels like, as we're talking in your body, it just feels so much like, cozy. It feels nice,
Yes.
I love that
Yes,
reframe.
thank you. Thank you. It's definitely a lot of unlearning from the design industry, like pieces of it that didn't really sit well with me, but also embracing parts of it that do still work with the work that I'm doing now. And I totally agree that there are a lot of parts of marketing and branding that feel icky or that feel like, that doesn't feel right because there's so much bro marketing out there that's so very male centric and led by men, where we're not remembering how we are connected as a community, or how do we have conversations where there is consent and it isn't just forcing a sale down people's throats, but how do we make it feel good and feel like genuine and real?
Yeah, I mean, when it's done right, it can be a real service, it can really like
Hmm.
all creativity, it really, whatever channel you're doing, whether it's music, whether it's painting, whether it's sculpture, whether it's design, whatever it is, you're like really enriching people's lives by what you do. And I think we can all resonate with like hearing a song that just completely changed our perspective on something, or just like completely hooked our life for a time. And that's really the power of what we're doing here with creativity. And it does feel cheap to then go with the bro marketing and say, you need to buy this, and, trying to kind of force it down people's throats. But again, you have to find a way to make it sit well with you to be able to get to the
Hmm.
life that you really desire, because we all desire that life where we just get to make stuff all day. And we have to get there by sharing the stuff. um I think also for me, sometimes having a brand about around what you do makes you a bit more excited to share it too. It's kind of got a
Hmm.
vibe, and it's got a mood, and it's got a, I don't know, je ne sais quoi about it, I
Yeah.
guess.
I love that. Yes. And when I think about branding too, there's a sense of, especially what I've come to hear from other clients and market research that I've done, there's a big fear around visibility. And so branding
Mm.
can help instill a sense of confidence and excitement around sharing your work and actually making sales so that your business is sustainable and you can live that life that you want in a way that feels true to your values. And so a lot of people that I've connected with, I've come to hear and see that they're hiding behind a brand that they don't feel really excited about. And then it's this endless cycle of feeling this frustration. But how can you create this mood and vibe that you're talking about that feels excited first and foremost within you? And when you're excited about it, other people can feel that and sense that even through the screen and be super curious and be like, ooh, I want to work with them. Like, what are they about? Because this feels really resonant with me just through their website, through their social content.
Yeah, for sure. So, kind of for listeners that might be, maybe they have that brand that they're not that excited about, branding that they're not that excited about, or they just have nothing and they're kind of just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that something's going to stick at some point. What would you say are maybe like the anatomy of a great brand, or like a few steps to clarify what your brand is?
Yes. So a big part around this, I can throw all of these technical things that you can do and all these steps and sure that's helpful. But I also want to invite in slowing down and pausing to quiet down the external noise, to quiet down all of the things that your peers are doing or what Pinterest boards that you're saving and everything else. And how do you reconnect to your inner voice, your inner wisdom, so that you can channel those ideas and visions of what your true brand essence really is without getting bogged down by all of the how to's and the you should do this type of thing. And so, one of those practices that I have found so much incredible feedback and insight from folks who participate in this that I often offer is connecting with your inner wisdom through your inner child or your inner voice in this non-dominant handwriting practice. And so,
Oh.
this is something those who are listening to can do if you're at home or at work. And if you're driving or doing something, re listen to this so that you can do this later. But it really takes just like at least 5 minutes. You can take longer if you'd like, but I've seen incredible messages come through from folks in this short practice. And so all you need is a piece of paper and something to write with. It could be a marker, it could be a pen, it could be whatever it is, but it's important that it's a physical piece of paper and writing tool. And so what this is that you're writing a particular prompt with your regular writing hand. So that's your dominant hand. So you'll write the prompt, the question on the piece of paper, and then you'll switch that pen to your other hand that you do not normally write with. That is your non-dominant hand. So for me, as a right-handed person, my non-dominant hand would be my left hand. And I would then respond to the prompt on the page and would have a timer for, let's say, 5 minutes. Keep writing until the timer is up without overthinking, without, questioning, oh, this doesn't look good. It looks messy. Even if you're writing the same word over and over and it sounds silly, like let that come through, whatever it is. And then once the timer is up, take a moment to take a look and just get curious of what was written on the page. And oftentimes it provides such deep, profound insight into what question or what prompt that you wrote down. And oftentimes you, I see like really simple words or responses, and that's all you need. It doesn't have to be this poetic prose of an essay. And because you're using a hand that you don't normally write with, it looks like a child's handwriting. So you also get this physical representation of your inner child speaking to you. And so a prompt that you could try out for those who are listening that you would write with your regular writing hand would be if connecting with your brand or figuring out your brand could be around the question of what does my true brand essence need from me? So you'd write down, what does my true brand essence need from me? And then you'd switch the pen to your non-dominant hand and respond. set a timer 5 minutes, come back, pause this episode, come back, and just see how that was for you, what the process was like for your body, emotionally, and then what comes through when you wrote down and when you read it. And you can do this for the next 7 days, see what comes up. You can change the question, you can keep the prompt, and see if you now have these more value aligned action items for yourself to focus on and do instead of, oh, I have to choose these fonts now in Canva and I have to choose these colors on all these things without actually doing the deeper work.
I love that so much. I'm totally gonna do that. And that sounds so much fun.
Yes.
But also it sounds that does sound really freeing, I guess, because you like I love journaling or like stream of consciousness journaling, but also to put it in your non-dominant hand and trying to write like you're writing for the first time as well. If you're unless you're somebody that's what's that word? Ambidextrous, that they can write both hands.
Hmm.
Unless you're one of those magical people. It's like you're trying to learn to write again. And it is kind of like
Yes,
that childlike or beginner's mind coming through.
exactly. Hmm.
Mm. Love that. That is also like a really unusual, I suppose, tool when we think about branding. Because you think of brand as, yeah, like photography style, colors, images, website, blah, 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 blah. So where do these kind of like more maybe psychological, we can call it, practices or tools and techniques come from in your practice?
Yeah, so when I was figuring out my own branding and exploring that after, um, actually what started my business was because I was laid off from my job and there was layoffs happening, of several people. And fortunately, I had this felt sense, my intuition saying, feeling excited about it, feeling the sense of freedom. And so it's this continued passion of mine of doing this, the connection to these intuitive practices or these wellness practices to get closer to the heart of who I am as a person and what my values are and how I want to show up in the world and bringing that heart back into the design process. Because in the design industry, when I was a designer and art director, it felt really rigid to me and it felt like it was straying away from the liberating energy of creativity, where it's not supposed to be restrained in these boxes and these spreadsheets and these processes all the time. Structure does help, get things moving and whatnot. And sure, that could have been helpful for those certain projects in the design industry. But if I were to shape up the business that I really feel excited about 100%, then it was this blending of connecting with your intuition and with your body and with your wellness, in addition to the strategy and the branding and putting that all together. And from there, it's been incredible to see when I put it out into the world with real life clients and groups, how it has helped reconnect to the beneath the layers, beneath the surface layers of just strategy and getting to any blocks that are happening, like the confidence piece or fears, getting to the heart of what they actually want to do to make that impact in the world, like you named earlier, and have those as North Stars to be like, okay, this is actually the strategy that will help with my branding or with my business and fitting that all together. And so that's something that has inspired me to put together because I've seen it happen and be so incredibly profound and transformative, not just in my business, but in others, in again, connecting with your inner voice, your inner wisdom, so that you're leading from this really grounded, steadfast, and clear place that is not just dictated by other people and by what you believe you think, quote unquote, has to be the correct way. But it also, if you do that, you also do not stand out because you're trying to attempt to copy and replicate what other templates are happening or what other people are doing. And so this also helps you stand out visually and energetically and the visual assets that you create.
Yeah, I love that. Can you remember what, like, when you felt in your body that you needed that more heart-centered uh, approach to yourself, maybe, or when you started exploring these kind of well-being techniques for yourself? Was it after the panic attack or was it later than that?
Yeah. So I would say when I started doing these more intentional practices with my wellness, it was one of my first design internships where I had a lot of time to listen to podcasts like this, where I was now learning about and stumbling upon things that were really helpful for me that it opened up the world to wellness and care for myself, for my body, because that was something that was not really talked about or a concept within my family or in college. No one was really talking about it. And so it was a lot of opening up this concept of, let's say, meditation and yoga and things like that, and journaling and reflection in this intentional way, and working with your shadows and integrating that as well. And from there, in after that was learning about connecting with my ancestors and learning about pre-colonial spirituality in the Philippines and that what that was like, and just this deepening of my self-identity and learn and putting them into practice continue to deepen what my connection was to my intuition, which is so deeply tied to my creativity as well. And so the deeper that I went into my intuition practices, it allowed me to channel quicker in my creative ideas and write even more clearly and true to what I was trying to say. And all these other things that came to become much quicker for me that helped in turn my passion projects, my business, and so on. So, for example, like that non-dominant hand practice, you can say that it connects with your inner child. It also helps with your intuition because it's this art therapy practice where it connects with the other side of your brain, where it's connecting with this non-logical, non-linear part. And when I brought this into practice at a retreat that I did for these nonprofit leaders, during the break, one of them said, "Oh my gosh, my brother who's like in biology, when I told him about the practice we did, he's like, how do you know that? I've been doing that every morning when I wake up." And so even scientists are doing this. So it's been amazing to see from my own personal practice of listening to that podcast, opening up that world of wellness and then intuition and connecting with my ancestry, um, how it continues to actually benefit me, and not just personally, but in connecting with others and showing them that it can help with their branding as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had kind of similar experience. I was at uni for fashion design, and then I was doing yoga, but I don't know. I had a sort of pulling to train to be a yoga teacher. It was a quite a random thing. But I followed it, and then it was sort of for years after that, it was the dance between interweaving things that I'd learned from yoga and then meditation as well, and breath work and things in within my fashion design process and
Mm,
creativity. So yeah, it's kind of a similar thing, and it is really interesting, I think, when um you start to kind of welcome this almost like a slowness to your
yeah.
creative process, because it's something that I think intuitively we all know that we need. We all know that we need to sit around and do nothing, and then sometimes the ideas come, or kind of live quite a slow life, and then the ideas come. But when it comes to sharing your work, I think a lot of us think that now it needs to be fast. Now it needs to be like pressure. Now it needs to be all or nothing. Now it needs to, go, 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 go. And that um momentum is a great thing. But I think like keeping yourself in touch with those practices during those times of sprint or during those times of momentum, again, really shifts a lot, I think.
I love that reminder too. How do we slow down and create that space for your creativity? And that's a big one as well in terms of being able to. quiet down that external noise, connect with yourself, take care of yourself because burnout, I've experienced this. That happens. I've seen it with peers as well. And so, how do we heal from that? Because when you are experiencing burnout, you're not slowing down like you named, then it becomes even harder for you to ideate and create ideas and have the energy to serve your clients or do the work in your business and whatnot. So, yes, that slowing down piece is a huge part as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I've definitely been burnt out as well. I mean, I was integrating these wellness practices into my life and it was all lovely and it sounds all nice, but I still did not take my own advice there and I did
Mm.
reach burnout. And I've witnessed like through healing my own burnout and also through because I had a fashion business. I was also teaching yoga and I had like two other jobs at the same time. And it was quite a lot. But I've noticed since recovering my own like creative burnout and physical burnout, and also guiding other people through similar things, it can be really interesting for creatives specifically because it's really hard to get back to our creative practice after something like that because your nervous system no longer feels safe with that thing that you used to
Hmm.
like would be like basically your safe space. It's really interesting kind of journey that.
Yeah, the mind, the like, and the body, like we named earlier, has a lot of wisdom. What you said around the safety piece, like, oh, that's a big one. So it's a lot of, creating that sense of safety again to return back to those things that we do enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. And like within people that you've worked with, how do you see like that dance between the well-being and the branding, or like really putting your work out there and starting to cultivate that courage to put it out? Like, how do you see that working with people that you've worked with?
Yes. So I was facilitating a session with a client, and she reflected back how she really appreciated that we started off with the intuitive branding rituals and practices at the start, and then we led into the strategy and the visioning and the branding conversations because she was even emotional at the beginning, crying and releasing. And it allowed her to get to the heart of those fears and blocks that were happening, preventing her from experiencing and attaining those goals that she named together. And so those are some things that we, go through, things like meditation that I guide folks through, to journal prompts, such as the one that I named here, to oracle cards, and anything else that feels relevant to that particular client, is getting to, again, slow down, quiet down that external noise, and see what is coming through organically, naturally, as they connect with their intuition. Because I can come in and with a strategy and a plan, but I want to hear first from them of what is really true and exciting and coming through at their heart, their brand essence. And from there, that is what we build strategically around from there, from that foundation. And so other tangible things that has been really helpful when we are blending these strategy and intuition practices together is one client also named another client named after our branding work together. I did custom branding for her. That months later we reconnected and she named how dream mentors and dream heroes were providing recognition and saying how they really loved her branding, and clients also complimenting her, and a client returning wanting to have a year-long partnership with her to hire her. And I was like, whoa, this is so exciting to continue to hear these affirmations of not just the internal changes that will happen for you by this particular framework, but the things that will actually change in your business, even energetically, even financially, to help with with your brand and your business that really excites and really resonates with people. And it's this immediate impact and effect. And people, and you show up more confident. Like she was saying that as well. She was showing up more confidently in creating because she wasn't even clear with her previous branding. And it felt all over the place. But now that she has this really clear visual identity, this almost digital persona that she gets to play with and create with, it now allows her to focus on serving her clients and continuing to work on her business in that way.
That's amazing. Great to hear. That's so awesome. While you were speaking then, I was just thinking like now you have like those testimonials, I guess we can call it, to look back on. But I'd love to know like the point in your life where you decided to start your own business. Like you said, when you got laid off, you were really excited to start your own business. And that is a really exciting thing, you know, for all of us. But sometimes when we actually like put the button and like hit go, it can be the scariest thing in the whole entire world. So I would really love to know your experience of launching your business, Unconventional Bliss.
Yes. So I was pushed off the cliff by the universe, so to speak.
Mhm.
So, yes, when I was laid off among uh, other peers during that time, fortunately, I had done a lot of this shadow work and inner work. And I also, to be transparent, was building up my savings account so that for any emergency, so that way financially I felt safe for whatever came to be. And so this ended up being that thing. And so when I was being told, I actually felt this sense of lightness, this excitement, this like, I think the word freedom came up in my mind in that moment. And after that call, I'm like, okay, it was this huge exhale. Like, it's time for me to just explore my own thing. And it's funny because before, especially when I was thinking about what my life would be like after my design program in university, I never considered freelance work or going off to do my own thing because I kept telling myself, "Oh, I don't have the discipline, that seems too much, all these other stories." But I just wasn't ready yet. I needed these corporate experiences and learnings from those different clients and projects and working with my own limiting beliefs and internal work for me to finally feel 100% ready and this calmness. And that told me, oh yeah, I'm ready. I'm not doing this out of force. Even though I was laid off, it was more like, okay, you're holding on to this safety net. So now it's time to create the space so that you can see that you're ready. Um, and it wasn't coming from this sense of scarcity, even though I had this uh, income stopped from that job. But it was really this really strong felt knowing and felt sense that it was time. And so that was the start of that. But actually, it also was help from connecting with my peers. And there were some people that I knew something about connecting with friends who were coaches or who had small businesses and just having informational interviews essentially and asking them about their experience building up their own business as solo entrepreneurs, what that was like, what resources were really helpful for them, all these things, because I am a very curious person. And so asking questions and getting curious is a big part of how I learn. And so that was really helpful for me to kind of get these really free resources, really, and step-by-step action plans of what I could potentially try out and do. And so from there, I went back to what I love doing as my own passion outside of work hours was community organizing, running workshops, and really focusing on the intersections of creativity, culture, and wellness. And so the first few things that I was doing was hosting workshops around creativity and rest and creativity and wellness and supporting folks as a general creative mentor. And that was kind of the start of my business today. Of now it has transitioned, focused more on branding for visionaries and founders. But it was a lot of experimentation and trial and error, but always rooting back to my passions and what really lit me up and what I was also good at. So remembering those, like what was I good at and what really lit me up and excited me.
Great. That's amazing. And yeah, often when we kind of start to do something, it can be like an intuitive pull, or you do get that knowing like now is the right time. But then sometimes like for some people, I wouldn't say for everybody, we can get fears of what's the word? Fear of judgment, or I suppose other people around
Hmm.
us maybe saying, projecting their fears upon us. You know,
Yeah.
are you going to make enough money? You're a little bit crazy for wanting to live that way. The list goes on. Did you experience any of that? And if so, what kind of kept you steadfast on and true to what you wanted to create and what you wanted to bring into life?
Yeah. So this is definitely a real experience and very true for so many people. And I feel like I kind of got my training in that, developing that thick skin for college when I was really defending my design focus and course that I was pursuing. Because when I was really making this difficult decision of, am I going to this school for the design program versus the business program that I got accepted in to another university or this biology degree, I applied to everything and every single place. And so it was getting a lot from my parents and even like my extended aunts and uncles, so their friends that I grew up with, advising me to take the safe route and to pursue the quote unquote conventional career path. And already I was really trusting my intuition, which I didn't realize at the time was my intuition, this gut feeling that even though it was illogical and it didn't make sense and it felt uncomfortable to go against the grain, I couldn't choose anything else except what I knew was right for me. And so I was practicing that same thing when it came to building up my own business. And the the no's and the external noise around that wasn't as loud because especially for my parents, because they've already seen that I've proven myself in as a
Hmm.
designer. So it wasn't as loud, but there were still like moments where my mom would say, "Oh, when are you gonna apply for a job?" When I was already having these freelance projects happening and getting paid for things and building my own business and having these incredible opportunities to collaborate with people, it was still, I don't know about you, but my parents probably don't really know what I'm doing. But I think over time now, they're like, okay, she's making money, I guess, and she's doing something in her room. Um, but it does take a lot of practice to have this deep self-trust within yourself, despite what others may say around you. And that does take a lot of work. And part of it, aside from the solo work, I think could be really helpful for folks who might be going through a similar thing, is finding community to be able to confide in. Whether they understand that particular experience or not, you can have different pods or groups of communities, like peers who are building their own business so that they know those particular challenges, and then peers to help you with your mental health and wellness, for example, or just like your childhood friends or whatever that may be. Just being able to have that space to be held and witnessed and embraced and affirmed can go such a long way during a really difficult time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think definitely community is for whatever you're doing is so helpful. Also, if you don't, maybe if you live somewhere that there aren't any other creatives who are starting their own business, it can be really helpful to listen to shows like this or find people
Hmm.
online who are. You don't have to befriend them necessarily. I mean, it's great if you can, but even if you don't, you have that affirmation that, okay, if they can, I can.
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
it's not like they haven't got some magic pill. Like everyone's just making it up as they go along. We're all just kind of following our intuition and trying our best. If someone else is doing like further down the path that you are, and that's really the life that you desire, if they can do it, then absolutely 100% you can do it.
I totally agree with that too. It's like, oh, this is proof, this is evidence that what I envision for myself, I may not be there yet, but someone is maybe just a few steps ahead, then it's possible for me too. And it continues to be that guiding point to keep going at it, even if it may feel difficult in that very moment.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else that you advise, like maybe from your own personal experience or from your clients that you work with when they're in that moment of like real self-doubt, when you're really questioning, like maybe I should get a real job or maybe I should do something else? Is there any kind of tools that you
Right.
come back to in those moments?
Yeah. So adding nuance to that conversation, I think it is definitely something that folks can consider having multiple streams of income. And especially if, finances are tight and you're the only person supporting yourself, or maybe you have kids that you need to support. Whatever that circumstance is, to demystify and normalize having different streams of income until you feel like you are able to run your business or whatever endeavor that might be as the sole thing. So having different forms of support or being able to, have family to support you, whatever that might be, totally okay. I want to normalize that because I don't just have my business, but I have other freelance projects going on as well. And then in terms of when they are moving through this, what else they can consider is having you know, um, maybe writing out a list of those expanders, those people that you do look up to, or this proof, this evidence that it is possible. And whether it's following them or reading their biographies or messaging them and emailing them, if you could do an informational interview to just say hello or whatever that might be, can be such incredible motivation to be in that energy that yes, it's possible and learn more about their journeys or what they're about. And then, also having the practices that take care of yourself when you are feeling emotionally charged or feeling down. That's also really important too, because it's inevitable. Life has its ebbs and flows, and you're not always going to be positive and have good vibes only. Like you're going to also experience the heaviness too. And so, what are the support systems, whether it's your therapist or your energy healer or your yoga class or your kickboxing class or running around your neighborhood, knowing what those wellness practices and support systems around that is also going to be key so that you can continue to sustainably show up time and time again, day after day, even when you're not feeling like, I don't feel confident today, but you know that you are, emotionally and physically supported to keep showing up. So those are just like some foundational things that could be helpful during this moment. I can keep going, but I don't want to
No, I
overwhelm
think it's
folks.
important also just to stress the thing you said at the beginning, because I think it's really glamorized, this like quit your job, do what you're passionate about thing.
Right.
And how my hands up, I used to be one of those people until I didn't, well, until I did that. I mean, I was always kind of teaching yoga in the background and doing other things, but I think nothing can kill your creativity more than fearing money.
Hmm.
Well, there are other things, but I think it's one of the biggest squishes of creativity. And we're kind of taught this glamorous image of creators are like broken if you're a really authentic creator. But actually, those are the two things that stifle our creativity the most. And I think it's some people will really thrive with the adrenaline that comes from just quitting your job and doing what you're passionate about. Um, and some people that will bring in so much anxiety that your creativity will just completely go down the drain. So I
Hmm.
think that's really important to stress, to make sure that your basic needs are going to be met if you're going to do that. And then to have these practices and tools and things that we come back to that can bring us back to earth again when we're stressing
Exactly.
or worrying about something.
Hmm. Totally. Totally agree.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I would love to kind of leave the audience with a little bit of insight from you. These are two questions that I've started asking almost everyone when I remember to ask them. They're just two things that I kind of sparking my curiosity at the moment. And the first question is, what do you think the best advice you've ever received was?
Ooh, that is a good question. And now I have to like filter through the years of, of advice. Um, hmm. Advice, best piece of advice. I think it's around, um, something that's coming up because I just finished this book around burnout is, um, where when you're burned out, you actually lose your sense of humor. You're not funny.
Wow.
And I was like, what? So I think it's around taking care of yourself and knowing what those practices are to ensure that you don't hit burnout again or ever uh, experience burnout, because it can not just affect your sense of humor, which was
Mm.
like mind-blowing to hear,
Yeah, wow.
but also how you show up in all of your relationships. You might get short with someone and be angry with them and you regret it, or you make a mistake at work or whatnot. Your brain can't hold the capacity to function in the same way because it's really running on fumes. So short on fumes. So yeah, just like being able to care for yourself is not an extra thing. Really, the piece was rest is not an extra thing you do. Rest is actually integral to your work or to your creativity.
That's so true. Yeah, definitely love that. And I was totally scanning my brain like, was I funny when I had burnout? I can't
Right.
remember. I can't actually remember, so probably not. Okay, the second one is because I think a lot of us listening to this are people that are going against the grain. We're living a life that maybe a lot of people don't live, or even one that's not been lived before. You might be just totally carving out a style of living that of creative living that maybe you haven't seen someone else live before. That can come with a lot of misconceptions and a lot of misunderstanding. We can feel really misunderstood sometimes. So the question is, what do you think is like a misunderstanding that people have either about you or about what you do, or both?
Mm, yeah. Um, Misunderstanding around what I do, I would say, is do I just create websites? Am I just a designer? And it's this curiosity on like, what are these intuitive practices? Like, what is that? And so it's this continued like, which, it's totally okay with me, this continued teaching of demystifying and educating on this particular framework. And so it's around that, like opening up the doors to viewing design and viewing branding in a different way. And I'm not the first person to be doing this or have this particular um, viewpoint around this. But there are many folks who come to me who say, I've never seen this before. And so it's not a big topic or it's not a common thing to know about. And so I'm excited to be able to continue that conversation and opening up this idea of how we blend in intuition and wellness with branding and design.
I love that. In that light, as you just described so beautifully in like a little snippet, exactly what you do, even though we've been talking about it for this whole time. But obviously, sometimes you have like one liner and people are left with. I think that's a great place to leave. Um, I'll obviously put the links to wherever everyone can find you in the show notes, but just in case people are ready to find you already, where is the best place they can go to find you?
Yeah, well, thank you again for having me on your show. I loved having this conversation with you. And again, hello everyone. I'm Isabel Bagsik, and you can find me on Instagram at Unconventional Bliss, same name of my website. And I'd be happy to have a conversation with you of what came through for you in the non-dominant handwriting technique. If you did it for one day, if you did it for the week, like let me know how that was, or if you had any other questions around branding or uh, combining that with intuitive practices. My DMs are open.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so curious to hear what people will come out from people from doing that. So definitely slide into the DMs with that one, everyone. And as always, thank you everyone so much for joining us for this week's show. And thank you, Isabel, for coming on. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Maverick Mind. I hope that you've loved it. And if you have, I would appreciate it so much if you would subscribe and write a 5-star review on wherever you're listening to this podcast from. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, I invite you to join me over on Instagram at Maverick Mind Co, or on my website maverickmind.elliefoden.com. And I'll see you in another podcast very, very soon.